Assalamualaikum and greetings. My name is Fadhila binti Ahmad. Today I'll be presenting on investigating the multilingualism and multicultural effect on shaping an individual oral literacy and communicative competence, a case study. Multilingualism was defined by Notcase 2019 as the ability of the speaker to speak within three or more languages, which is different or the contrary to monolingualism, which the speaker could only speak in one respective language. Francesini 2011 elaborate more that multilingualism covers a wide range of social, institutional, and the individual routine itself that include the varieties of language, such as the national language, the regional languages, sign languages, and more. While multiculturalism was defined by Longley as the manner of the society to cope with cultural diversity and enriched with the behavior of peacefully respecting the other members of opposite cultures and encouraging them to preserve their very own culture. And multiculturalism was normally associated with the theories of melting pot and salad bowl. For the melting pot, in a very simple words, Bachman 2006 explained that different kind of cultural background, norms, belief, living together and producing a new form of identity, while the salad bowl by Thornton 2012 suggests that the ingredient representing the heterogeneous society with different background of culture, norm and beliefs living together in the same environment, which is the bowl. However, they are preserving their very own identity separately, and they are representing the ingredients, while the dressing, which connect them or being the integration agent between the ingredient, was known as the law and the market. For the communicative competence, it has been introduced in 1980 by Canal and Swain. It consists of 4 different kinds of competence, which is grammatical competence focusing on the correct grammatical structure of the language, the discourse competence, which is the ability for someone to communicate with coherent and cohesive speech, the strategic competence, which is the ability to provide a solution to reduce miscommunication in utterances, and lastly, the sociolinguistic competence, which is the production of suitable speech accordingly to the sociolinguistic setting. This study focuses on how does individuals' oral literacy and communicative competence was molded and influenced by the multilingualism and multiculturalism through a case study with the respondents of multilingual and multicultural background. The objective of the study is to investigate the effects of multilingualism and multiculturalism towards one's oral literacy and contributes the answer for the respective research question. For the methodology section, the participant is a postgraduate student from USM. She currently pursuing her Master of Arts in Translation for Professional for her final semester, and she speaks with Penang dialect, Malay with Penang dialect as her first language, English as her second language, and she was able to communicate in Russian, Kazakhstan, Spanish, and Korean. As for the procedures, an online interview has been carried out for approximately 16 minutes, and the conversation from the interview was later turned into a transcription and further analyzed accordingly using the communicative competence model by Canal and Swain 1980 in order to answer the respective research question. For discussion and findings section, The respondents shared that her learning process were different for each of different languages. For example, she learned Korean informally since her high school days by self-taught. She learned Kazakhstan, Russian languages simultaneously when she was under an exchange student program. And she joined a Spanish class voluntarily during her degree day to explore more in Spanish language. For the sociolinguistic competence, we could see that the background knowledge of the history plays a great role in order for someone to learn certain language. For example, she has the background knowledge of the history of the Kazakhstan, and the Kazakhstan language is not as established as nation language but also the Russian. However, the Russian was frequently used as a business language, a governmental language there, that give the Russian special case, which is a higher status in their country compared to Kazakhstan language. This shows that by observing the language demand in the respective country and learning the culture and historical background of the language, she could learn and understand the diglossia features and status of each languages. For example, Kazakhstan language is the low variety, while the high variety is the Russian language. The grammatical competence helps the learners to completely compare and contrast within the languages that she's been learning by the advantage of being an observer. She has the deep analysis on the deep characteristic and the use of the language structure. For example, there is gender in Russian language. In Spanish, there is no writing system, while there's a conjugation meaning in their verbs. And to learn English is more likely understand, as it is not too different from English. And the background knowledge in English itself helps her to understand the meanings of the words in Spanish while she is trying to building the sentences. It shows that the better understanding on how does the sentence structures in the respective language functions is important to learn a language. For the discourse competence, it shows that by gathering learning resources such as movies and songs, helps her to get a good exposure on certain language that she's been learning. For example, Korean. She exposed herself to Korean drama and Korean songs. And by watching the movies, the subtitles itself helps her to understand the meanings of the words or the interesting phrase while reading the subtitles. As Ayan and Shafi'i said, the translation provided by the subtitles could be effective in pedagogical field that involve writing, oral skills, grammar, vocabulary, and cultural features. And for technology itself, it helps in translating the subtitles into a known language such as her very own mother tongue language. And by listening, they learn how to pronounce and learn to pronounce, which is equally same by learning how to speak. It shows that a good command of a language requires both the listening and speaking skill, and this evidence being supported by Wu 2010 that says that a good command of a language requires both the listening and speaking skill, and the listening skills could help to enhance one's oral literacy skill. And for the strategic competence, this verbatim was taken when she was learning Spanish. She said that if you don't know how to spell it, at least you're saying properly. It shows that practicing the respective language with the lecturers and fellow classmates helps her to gain the correct pronunciation to reduce miscommunication during her lesson. The factors that enforce the multilingual and multicultural skills is the awareness on multilingualism and multiculturalism environment. Firstly, the passion and the interest. It shows that as a foundation in developing to know more than one language, we need to be bilingual first so that we could have the basic exposure to what does learning other languages is all about. And Kipo says that the interactive environment could enhance the learner's multilingual skills. For example, by communicating, by going for mobility program, by knowing new friends and new culture, it helps that the learners to get a great exposure as much as they could, which is learning is different process which is happen in the classroom, and acquiring is the different process which is out of the classroom. And for learning other ethnicity, languages and cultures that are part of our society, Claude says that to have a good command of a language does not only mean that you know the meaning of the words of the certain languages, but to know the culture itself, to explore more on the culture. And it says that for our fellow Malaysian, we have the exposure to this multicultural and multilingual society. Therefore, we cannot avoid from knowing some Chinese words. Same goes to Tamil and also to other variety of languages. And the benchmark is, at least for a certain degree, we should know one languages that represent one races or one culture. And then lastly, by having the skill of multilingualism and having the knowledge of multiculturalism, it helps in terms of future career prospect as a professional translator. In her scenario, she wants to be a good translator, which means she have to be aware of what does the culture says and how does the language comprehend in the culture itself. And based on this scenario, the learners will be anticipated to practice the problem-based learning strategies in order to produce a solution that almost similar to the real-life situation, which is translating in her case. As for conclusion, to be a proficient speaker, one needs to be aware and understand what does communicative competences element is. And the awareness on the importance of multilingualism and multiculturalism could be a fundamental basis on understanding the variety of cultures in our countries and embedding the respect values among the universal society. This study contributes a knowledge on a different strategy could be implemented for each language learning process, and the learners itself must have a great passion and determination to learn or acquire the language at the same time. And the study proves that the exchange program provided by the university could be an important platform to give the students the exposure to multilingualism and multiculturalism by learning new language and making new friends abroad and understanding their culture. As for recommendation for future research, the study could be further analyze the role and the effect of social media development towards multiculturalism and multilingualism towards the youth by considering the social media as a form of control variable of platform studies. And the researcher could contribute to the importance of the higher educational institution as the diaspora agent to help the students discover more on multilingualism and multiculturalism through mobility program or even internship program. These platforms could be the main factors that act as a form of catalyst and should be further studied by the next researcher on how it could help to explore more on this multiculturalism and multilingualism by using relatable theory models as a framework. That's all from me. Thank you.